Right, this is going to need a coffee. Okay, let's go. So I live in front of quite a busy road. It can be quite difficult to pull out of the drive sometimes. Thankfully, I'm also a bit of a smart home / home lab nerd, so I had an idea. I'm going to take some services that I've got on my home lab already, and I'm going to combine them all to create a fancy little traffic monitor, which you can see here. All of the services I'm going to use for this are going to be free open source solutions that you'll be able to grab for yourself. I'm actually not going to go into the details of how to install these services. I'm going to assume that you've already got a little bit of base knowledge here. I'm going to put links in the description of the video so you can go and find resources on how to do this. So if you do need that help, take a look down there. The first service I'm going to use is Frigate. This is an NVR or network video recorder software, and this basically takes a feed from any IP connected camera and will give it to you over the network. It's really, really handy. The reason why I'm using Frigate is A, I've already got it set up on my network and it's really, really good bit of software. And B, most importantly, it supports our next service, which is MQTT. So MQTT stands for Message Queue Telemetry Transport. Does it? Let me check that. Yes, it does. Message Queue Telemetry Transport. I was right. So basically, this is what's known as a pub sub client or a message queuing client. And I've had this in my smart home since the very beginning. So basically what it does is it takes a message from one device as a simple little text string and then passes it to another device, which is incredibly useful for passing sensor data, which is exactly what we're going to be doing here. That information is then going to be passed to the brains of our whole operation, which is going to be Node-RED. Node-RED is a superb little automation tool. It basically allows you to write code without writing any code, which might sound complicated, but it's really not. All of my smart home automations are running in Node-RED. It is a fantastic tool and it is perfect for the next bit of our job. Node-RED's then going to pass that information to InfluxDB, which is going to be our database solution. The reason why I've chosen Influx rather than another type of database solution is because this is specifically a time series database. So it captures the timestamp every single time, and it's really, really great for small amounts of data. And all this is basically just one little text string that we're going to be passing, so it's ideal. Now, I don't know Influx that well. I know how to use the database part of it, but it does have all of the graphing stuff built into its own interface. So if you know Influx already, you can skip the whole Grafana part and just do everything in Influx. I don't really want to do that. I like the control that Grafana gives me, and I've used Grafana a few times before, so I will be using Grafana. But like I say, if you want to do the Influx part, that's entirely up to you. The very, very last step is going to be Grafana. Grafana is a fantastic little graphing solution. So if you're into your data and you want to actually be able to display it all in a nice little chart, graph, any sort of dashboard really, Grafana is a superb solution for it. So that's what we're going to be using. It gives you a hell of a lot of control and I love it. In true Blue Peter style, here's one I made earlier. So I actually made this just over a week ago, so you can see all of the data coming in for the last 7 days. The peaks are when the traffic is busy, the greens are when the traffic is light. Basically, if the sun's up, it's busy outside my house. That's basically how it goes. So this is what we're going to rebuild. When we do this, we're not going to get, obviously, the same data. It's going to take a while for the data to come in. So I just want to show you, like, this is the outcome. This is the desired result at the end. So even though I'm not going to show you how to set up the individual services, there is a couple of bits of setup that we are going to need to do. You've probably already done this if you've used MQTT with Frigate before, but if you haven't, here's your little intro. So here is my dashboard for Frigate. So I've got my 2 cameras here. This is the one that we're going to be using. As you can see, it's actually not too busy today, which is not ideal for our situation, but hey ho. So if you click on configuration, the little settings thing, configuration editor, what you need to do is you need to add this little section here. If you look in the Frigate docs, it will tell you everything you need to know. So basically point this at your Frigate server. You don't actually need to use authorization if you don't want to. If your MQTT isn't authorized, it's not mandatory. Mine is, so I've just left it in there. Topic prefix Frigate, client ID Frigate. I would leave those as they are. That's the ideal setup. So once you've got Frigate connected to MQTT, you should be able to start to see a little Frigate section appear in your MQTT feed. So this is MQTT Explorer. This is a Mac MQTT client, basically, that shows you all of the stuff that your MQTT is doing. There are plenty of different clients out there. You don't need to use this one, but this one's free. It's available on the App Store. So if you're using a Mac, go grab it. It's handy. So this will tell us that in Frigate, we have a front door camera, which is the one we're looking at. And then we want to detect car. So we could use active, but active isn't great. The output of active is 1 or 0, which isn't all that useful. And what we are going to use is snapshot, because snapshot gives us an update every single time. If you are a Frigate expert and you want to tell me that I'm using the wrong feed, please tell me. I will happily change that. But for now, we're going to copy that to the clipboard because we're going to need that later. Alex from the future here, you can tell because I'm wearing a shirt now. So I actually did a bit of an experimentation on this just to make sure I was actually right. And technically, the active topic, it works. Because basically we don't care about the contents of the message, we care about the message activating. I have done some experimentation with snapshot and active for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why. The snapshot one is still slightly more reliable, so that is still the method I've chosen. But active does work, it just doesn't seem to work as often. I'm assuming it's because every single message is either 1 or 0, whereas the snapshot ones are always unique, but that's a guess. Your mileage may vary. Here's another one I made earlier. So this is our full Node-RED flow. This is actually excessive. You don't need all this. The only ones we're going to need are these ones here. The influx node, the change node, and the MQTT node. The reason why I've done two little branches, this is the basic one. This is the one that we're going to be working with. This assumes that you're using influx for time series data. So basically every single time a message hits this bit here, it will then do some processing and then pass it to influx, and that's all it will do. It will do that every single time a message comes through. If you're not using a time series database, you can use the batch node in Node-RED, group it by whatever time interval you want. This is every 60 seconds. And basically what that will do is it will capture all of the messages that come in, group them together, and at the end of 60 seconds it will just send them out as a batch. So you can then use the join node, which is just down here somewhere. There, and there's the batch node as well. You can see the things there. So there's the join node with the icon, and there's the batch node with the icon. I've set this up to reducer mode, and then I've just created a little reducer sequence bit of script. So basically what that will do is it will take all of the messages, batch them together, add them up, so the count is the actual count of how many counts there were, rather than just loads of count one messages, which is what we're going to have normally, and then output a new one with the correct number. So don't worry about this unless you particularly want to use a non-time series database or you want to do something different with the data. You don't need to worry about the batching. We're only going to be recreating these three here. Also, don't worry about the report group error. This is just housekeeping. This is just something I do on all of my node flows. So you can see on some of my more complex ones, I've got them all. Basically, it just says if there is an error in this group, this outline here is a group, message me, let me know about it. That's all that is. So again, don't worry about it. We're not going to be dealing with that today.
You're doing too much. Do less.
Okay, let's start building things with Node-RED.
I think you're ready.
So the first thing we're going to want is our MQTT in node. So there is also an MQTT out that will basically publish a message from your Node-RED instance to an MQTT broker. We don't want that. We just want to subscribe to one. So we'll drag that in. When you first drag it in, you'll see a little red triangle. That's basically going, hello, what am I doing? Who am I? So it needs to be connected to a server. I've already got one connected. If not, click on the plus and then fill these details in. It's the same details that you gave for Node-RED. Client ID would be Node-RED, or you can just leave it blank. I generally leave mine blank. And then security is obviously if you've got authentication. I already have that set up on mine, so I will just select my server. For the topic, we're going to go with the thing we copied from MQTT earlier on, which is our front door cam snapshot. QoS 0 is fine for this. Basically, QoS 0 is fire and forget. So basically what that will do is the server will send a message out and then it won't listen back to see if it's been received. It doesn't really care. It's like, whatever. QoS 1 and 2 is really, really useful in more mission critical scenarios where you have to be sure that the message was received. We're only taking an average of the cars that go past, so QoS 0 is perfectly fine. In fact, for most smart home / home lab things, QoS 0 is probably fine. A Future Al again. So yeah, one thing I forgot to mention earlier when I was recording is Frigate is actually doing AI processing for the videos. So one of the reasons why QoS 0 is absolutely fine for this is because the AI can't process all that efficiently when there are multiple cars on the screen. So it's going to miss a couple anyway. So even if 1 or 2 messages do get dropped over the course of 5 minutes, it's really not going to make a huge amount of difference. We're only getting a rough average of how busy things are. So don't worry too much about it. So we'll click done. And what this will do is every single time a vehicle passes, every single time it captures something that's a car, it will then send a message payload. That's what Node-RED calls things, a payload, or a message rather, and that will send it to anything from this output here. So if we connect this output to an input of a debug node, which is listening on message.payload, and then click deploy, which is effectively save and publish. Then if we go to our debug, you will see every single time a car comes past. In fact, let's just put the CCTV overlay here. So you can see every time a car comes past, we should get a message come in. Look at it go quiet as soon as I start recording. Here we go, look. Okay, so you can see messages coming in now. So that's basically telling us that this is working, but this is a buffer output. We don't want this. This is the actual buffer of the snapshot image, which is way excessive. We don't want that at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick a change node in there, stick that right in the middle, and then we're basically going to say set message payload to a JSON object, and that JSON object is just going to be count 1. That's it. So if we clear that and deploy that, every single time a car comes past now, we'll just see count 1, which is perfect. It's exactly what we want. So now we've done that, we can actually send this to Influx. So I've got an InfluxDB node here. So the way you add new nodes is you go to configuration and then manage palette, and then go to install, and then just search for the thing you want. So this is called Node-RED contrib InfluxDB. If you've used Node before, Node Package Manager, these are just npm packages. So if you had access to your command line, you could also do it through npm install Node-RED contrib InfluxDB. It's the exact same thing. This is just doing it through a nice little interface. And then once you've got that, it will give you all these little nodes. So we want an InfluxDB out node. So we will connect the output of our change node into our InfluxDB node. And again, you'll see a little red triangle because it doesn't know what it's doing. So again, you would need to, you can give it a name if you want, and then you go to server, and then you set up your new server. So I'll show you mine already set up. So I've set it to version 2, which is because that's the server I'm using. And then we'll do the URL, and then the token, which is automatically generated, that comes from InfluxDB. Again, I'm not going to teach you how to do InfluxDB, but all of that's documented. So we then need to change our buckets. Mine is just imaginatively named my bucket. My organisation is, I think it's the Foxnet. I'll check that in a second. And then the measurement we're going to be doing, I think it's car. Let me just double check that. So I'll click done. Go to my one I made earlier. Oh, it's traffic. There we go. So we'll copy that. Traffic. And I'm going to do it in seconds. Maybe seconds is a little bit excessive. So if then click done, and then let's get rid of our debug node. We don't need that anymore. And then click deploy. Our InfluxDB is now receiving this data. Or at least it would be if I had spelt it right. So let's go back there. I've obviously done this wrong. Oh, it's just Foxnet, not the Foxnet. Let's go back to that. Click deploy. Super. Right, so let's check to make sure this data is in InfluxDB. So this is our InfluxDB interface. If you actually go to the Data Explorer tab, which is the little graph here, if you click on that, you can see here we've got my bucket, and then traffic, which is the measurement, and then count, which is the property that we specified earlier on. And then click on custom over here, untick mean, click sum, press submit, and there we go, there's our data. Now obviously this is the data that's been coming in for a while. If you've just set this up, it's going to look really different. I would actually I would do all of the MQTT and Node-RED part, go away for maybe an hour or two, and then come back and do this bit so you can actually see it with real data. I think it'll be more useful that way. So if you are happy with this graph, then great, you're pretty much done. You can do a little bit of tidying up in Influx, but this is how things are. I'd rather not use Influx. I'm much more comfortable with Grafana, and I think Grafana produces prettier results. So we're going to go with Grafana next. Okay, so this is the Grafana interface, ain't it beautiful? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new dashboard. Now, obviously, we've already got one here, but we're going to create a new one anyway. But before we do that, we're going to need to do a new data connection. So if you go down to Connections and click Add New Connection, and then search for Influx, and then click Add New Data Source. What you then need to do is you need to select your query language first. Don't choose InfluxQL unless you're using a fairly old version of Influx. That's not really the way anymore. You can use either SQL or you can use Flux. I'm actually using Flux. SQL is, I think, the recommended way of doing it, but when I started using Influx and Grafana, it was Flux. That was the language of choice, so that's the one that I'm using. So click on Flux, put all your data in, and then you'll need your same organization token and default bucket from earlier, so put those details in. I'm not going to fill this in because I've already got one set up. So let's go to Dashboards, create a new dashboard, and then click on Add Visualization. And then we'll select our data source. You can see I've done this a few times now. And now this is super easy. So basically you call your panel whatever you want, and you choose the right type of graph. I'm going to go with bar chart. I'm not going to go into all the different types of chart. Grafana's fantastic. Grafana has got so many different ones. I don't think this is even all of them. I think you can add new ones. But we're going to go with bar chart, and we're going to call it traffic over 5 mins. Right, okay, I'm just going to hide my feed because we're going to need a lot of other stuff down this section here. So let's go to screen only. There we go. Right, so now we've got our name. We're going to put our Flux code in. So I'm just going to copy and paste some Flux code that I wrote earlier, and then I'll just talk you through it. So this is basically saying from the my bucket, take the start time range and the stop time range, which are these bits here. So you could hard code these, like say if you wanted to just capture a specific time period from a very specific fixed moment of time, you can hard code those values. If you use the v.timeRange start and the v.timeRange stop, that will literally be these bits here. So this is more useful for your average dashboard, so I would stick with that. Then we're going to filter on the measurement value and look for the count in that measurement value. So that's the payload that we sent through Node-RED. And now this is why we didn't need, so earlier on, when we did this branch here, this is why we don't need to do that. So this batching is actually being done for us in Grafana. So this is what aggregate window does. So it basically says a 5-minute window of time. Over that 5-minute window of time, add all of the values of count together, and then if there are any empty values, just drop them. Completely ignore that they exist. So that takes account to tell us how many vehicles have been counted, how many cars have been counted over the course of 5 minutes. So let's hit refresh, and there's all our lovely data. Okay, so obviously this looks a bit rough down here. That's because everything's overlapping, so we can set a minimum spacing on the x-axis labels minimum spacing here. We can set it to large, we can set it to medium, or we'll do my preference, which is small. So obviously this just reduces the amount of labels on the axis to a much more manageable amount and make sure that they never overlap each other. So another thing we can do is we can tweak the widths and the radii of the bars to make them look a little bit nicer. So let's do that. That's quite nice. Another thing we can do is we can say, not that one, we can go down to thresholds. So by default, it just gives us just 80 threshold, which is actually great. That is what we want. That is a really good threshold, but we want more than that, so not just red and green. So we'll add a couple more, and we'll say anything over, say, 20 is yellow, and anything over, say, 40 is orange. Oops. And then we can click on show thresholds and then set that as filled regions and lines. There's loads of different types. It depends on your personal preference. I like this one. So what this does is obviously just gives us actual regions in the background. And then we can actually change the colour scheme to make it so each of these bars conforms to the colour of the threshold. So if we go to colour thresholds by value, there we go. And then we can actually give ourselves a bit more information here, a bit more data to look at. And as you can see, anything within the green threshold is green, yellow threshold is yellow, orange threshold is orange, and anything tipping into the red value is actually red. Okay, so now if we save our dashboard and then go to dashboards, and then we click our dashboard and go to view, and there's our dashboard. So this is the data over the last 24 hours, but thankfully, because we used that variable earlier on to tie it to the range, we can actually make it anything we want. So we can say this is it over the last 15 minutes, this is it over the last 30 days. Obviously don't have 30 days worth of data, but it gives you a good idea. There you go, a lovely beautiful dashboard that shows you when traffic is busy outside your house. How useful is that? So that was fun, eh? This isn't the only video I plan to do in this series. I'm also going to do another one where I actually capture every bus that comes by and then mar that data up with local bus timetables to see if they're actually as accurate as they claim to be, because I suspect they're not. If you're interested in that one, please subscribe to my feed and hopefully the next one will be edited a little bit better. Sorry, this is my first one. Hopefully you'll like this video. If you do, please hit the like button, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ra!